Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app, O'Connor and Company.
It is 7:07 now on O'Connor and Company. Thank you so much for letting us be a part of your morning routine. Hopefully our show isn't very routine today. We got a lot of dynamics going on here. Coming up at 8:05, Steve Malloy, formerly of the Trump EPA team there, talk about a big move yesterday from Lee Zeldin, deciding that carbon dioxide, that stuff you breathe out, the stuff that feeds plants around the planet, you know.
Yes.
Part of the whole photosynthesis process. It's not a pollutant. That's shocking, I know. We'll get into that. I'm Larry O'Connor. That's Julie Gunlock. And joining us now is a friend of the program and a neighbor to WMAL. Lives right down the street-ish. President of Judicial Watch, the one and only Tom Fitton. Yeah, that's right. I just let people know where you live, Tom.
Yeah, thanks for doxing me.
Well, I mean, it narrows it down to the entire northwest of the District of Columbia, yeah. Or maybe up
when me and the fam show up at your house, you know why.
No, they already have. Tom, obviously at Judicial Watch, you guys are the kings of trying to get transparency in our government and getting some documents that the feds don't want us to see. And I know that you're even hitting roadblocks with the Justice Department here under President Trump and Pam Bondi, which is frustrating. But you did get quite a bit of a treasure trove here from Homeland Security, and this has to do with the Biden administration's communications regarding Tim Walz and the Chinese Communist Party. What exactly did the Biden administration know about Tim Walz here that the rest of us should have known, as he was almost one heartbeat away from the White House?
Oh, it's a series of chat messages or text messages or communications with or in Department of Homeland Security offices about the intelligence issues related and national security issues related to Walz's connections to the Chinese. At one point, one of the analysts or individuals says that China is happy. They see his announcement as being vice presidential nominee as something that was perfectly in line, feeds into what, quote, the PRC has been doing here with him. It's seriously a line of the intel, target someone who is perceived they can get to D.C. They said the public doesn't really have an understanding of the strategic impact. It's more of a strategic impact than obviously the general public knows. They talk about getting the FBI involved, classified briefings on the issue. It's an extraordinary release of information by Secretary Noem, and obviously we sued for it, but they didn't have to give it to us. And it's about as important as information as you've been seeing in terms of the leaks, not leaks, but the disclosures you've had, declassification by Tulsi and the rest.
Tulsi Gabbard, yeah, and I want to ask you about that because you were one of the people really trying to get to the bottom of the Russiagate conspiracy when it was happening, not after the fact. But one of these communiques from a Homeland Security official is incredible. Let me read it to you. Waltz got the VP. You all have no idea how this feeds into what the People's Republic of China has been doing here with him and local government. It's seriously a line of the intel. Target someone who is perceived they can get to D.C. And again, this is a Homeland Security official during the Biden administration saying this. And in light of what we're learning about the Russian collusion hoax, I got to ask, Tom, the narrative during the investigation of the Trump campaign was that somehow Trump, it was a lie, but Trump was Putin's puppet and then Putin had groomed him to be the president, which was a lie, and they triggered a whole investigation and FISA warrants and everything to try to get to the bottom of that. Here, this seems to be very real intelligence about what China has been doing, grooming Tim Walz. And based on this document dump, was there any action taken?
Against Walz? It was clear there was an intelligence operation monitoring what was happening here in the United States. The FBI was involved with this information, including let's see, the perception narrative has been pushed with one of the local NGOs, had direct ties to the former gov here in Nevada. So there's a governor in Nevada who was implicated. FBI has a lead on a couple of things, the only issue being it being in the Ninth Circuit. So they were investigating Chinese activities out there west, whether it involved Waltz directly or not. It's unclear. But what's not unclear is that the FBI, they endeavored to bring them into this issue about Waltz and the Chinese. And I don't know. I think it's kind of big news that the intelligence community, in part at least, noted the Chinese had a special interest in Waltz, and he was the vice presidential nominee for one of the two major parties.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Tom,
better intelligence than they had on Trump and Russia, as you know.
That's right.
Tom, one of the lines in this that was revealed is in the sort of group chat was a participant. I think the name was redacted. It says, "I think this conversation is foiable." Do you worry about that? Do you worry about sort of, not being able to find additional information on this because they're once they realize that Tom Fitton can get this information or it will be released? What was your reaction to seeing that comment?
Yeah, I mean, to the degree this was declassified information, maybe they didn't have to worry about it because it was classified initially. Everything that's classified is potentially foiable as well.
Yeah.
So the initial response I would have to that, if they get a warning that this is foiable, they go to what they call is the high side, right, which is the intelligence communications. But all of that can be potentially declassified, even though it's a barrier to get done. That's a challenge with all communications. It's the government. The government employees now know Judicial Watch and others are out there. Does it stop them from communicating? No, because they still have to communicate.
We're speaking with Tom Fitton of Judicial Watch, and this is a remarkable story. I suggest you take a look at it. You can find it over at the Judicial Watch website, judicialwatch.org. China is happy, say the emails about Tim Walz being nominated for vice president. Tom, you mentioned the recent declassification from Tulsi Gabbard, and also we're anticipating one from the CIA soon, having to do with what the Obama administration and Obama himself knew about the Russian collusion hoax and when he knew it. And it sure looks like his fingerprints are all over this thing. Is there anything now missing? What else are you looking for to sort of fill in the blanks about what Comey, Clapper, and Brennan did, and what kind of criminal charges do you think are applicable at this point?
Oh, well, they still haven't looked at all of Clinton's emails.
That's right.
Louise. That came out. They still have a lot of data they haven't reviewed about, for example, whether and how Obama's emails were compromised. And it seems to me that the Justice Department obviously is going to review all of this for potential criminal activity. Am I confident there's going to be as much done as people want? I don't think so. And that's why I keep on suggesting the president appoint a special counsel directly and have him report to him, because the Justice Department and the FBI, in essence, and this is no criticism of Bondi or Cash, it's just an acknowledgement there's a conflict of interest institutionally.
Yeah.
So should the FBI investigate the FBI? The Justice Department investigate the Justice Department? I think not in these circumstances. They don't have enough people to do even independent investigation internally that would be sufficient, and that's why the president should bring outsiders in.
Maybe Joe DeGenevo would come out of retirement and head that.
Yeah, there are all sorts of good people he could hire that would get the work done, and Cash and Pam can focus on releasing Epstein records and fighting the judicial insurrection.
Tom Fitton, Judicial Watch. Always a great conversation, sir. Keep up the great work.
You too. Thank you, guys.
7:16.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
Yeah, the EPA made a decision yesterday, or announced a move. Director of the EPA, or Administrator of the EPA, Lee Zeldin, speaking to the boys over at the Ruthless podcast, announced that the EPA would rescind a 2009 declaration that said carbon dioxide and other so-called greenhouse gases endanger public health and welfare and are pollutants. Now, this actually started under the George W. Bush administration, but it did take Obama's EPA to finalize all of the plans. It's actually one of the worst decisions the EPA has ever made. You may believe in climate change, and you may believe in all of the so-called science that backs up the idea of global warming having to do with man-made carbon emissions that then are going to lead to disasters on this planet. I don't buy into all of the dogmas that you must buy into to be an Al Gore-type climate change fanatic. That said, you may believe all of that, but to call carbon dioxide a pollutant and empower the government to regulate carbon dioxide emissions, cow flatulence and the like, right, which, by the way, pales in comparison to, one volcano eruption. Well, or one natural occurrence of carbon dioxide in this country. It was the worst possible decision. It was the most costly decision, and it empowered government to control so much of our lives under this guise of carbon dioxide being a pollutant. This is long overdue, and thank God they're moving in this direction.
Yeah, I was relying on my colleague at IWF, Gabby Hoffman. She wrote up sort of an analysis of what's going to happen. And she talks about how they based this sort of Obama administration putting this in play. They based it on, this is unbelievable, the basis that carbon dioxide, when mixed with these other greenhouse gases, contributes to climate change and endangers human health. But when you ask them how much was the carbon dioxide, they didn't say. They didn't say. They just said it's present. So because they made these sort of crazy associations, we had a situation where literally the air you're breathing out is considered a pollutant, which of course led to all of these industry regulations on cars and other things.
Yeah, and it's been a war on beef, a war on meat, a war on farming, a war on agriculture.
Cow farts.
And raising cattle. Yes. Well, not just cow farts, but eating the grass releases carbon. Grazing releases carbon. The entire process. And ultimately, listen, if you take this to its ultimate end, human beings create carbon dioxide. Giving birth releases carbon dioxide.
Right, Larry. Exactly.
Human beings eating also releases carbon dioxide. So, maybe we need to regulate how many babies can be born to save the planet. I know that sounds like this Brave New World science fiction stuff.
No, Larry, you saw, yeah.
But that's the logical conclusion.
I mean, carbon credits, like you take a flight, right? There was talk about limiting people's ability to take flights. That means, of course, not for the elites. They can take, because they can buy all the carbon credits, right?
That's right. They buy their special, their dispensations. They buy their indulgences.
Totally dystopian.
From the environmental pope. Yeah.
That's right.
That it's a great move from the EPA. And we're going to speak to Steve Malloy, who is on Trump's EPA transition team, coming up at 8 o'clock. Al Gore was big mad about this. Al Gore, who basically, he's gotten ridiculously rich as a venture capitalist, focusing on all of the schemes and scams that have leveraged these environmental regulations. So he pushes for them, gets a Nobel Prize for it, and then enriches himself on the big business behind, solar farms and wind farms and all of that garbage. And Steve Guest, a social media influencer and former staffer of Ted Cruz, he points out that this was that same Al Gore 10 years ago in Copenhagen.
And these are figures that are fresh. I don't know if they've been I don't know when they were released, but I just got them yesterday from Dr. Václav Maslowski at the Naval Postgraduate School, and this is the volumetric record of the ice. And some of the models suggest to Dr. Maslowski that there is a 75% chance that the entire North Polar ice cap during some of the summer months could be completely ice-free within the next 5 to 7 years.
Now, that was 10 years ago when he was saying that these models now show us that there's a 75% chance that the entire North Pole ice cap will be ice-free in 5 to 7 years. And by the way, last I checked, Antarctica, the southern polar ice cap, has actually grown in volume. And I believe the northern polar ice cap, has also grown or at least maintained. They're constantly wrong about their dire predictions. And it's all meant to drum up hysteria and to make people like Al Gore rich. Make no mistake about that.
That's right. Absolutely.
This is a great thing. Good for Lee Zeldin. It could only happen with this Trump administration and with the empowered cabinet members that he's got, like Lee Zeldin. He's been a superstar. It is 7:24.
Coming up, we're going to give you an update on the Sydney Sweeney fake drama. Good Morning America is jumping on the bandwagon. Keep it here. We'll cover it. It's 7:30.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. WMAL. News now. WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It's 7:37. Thanks for tuning in here to we call O'Connor and Company. It's a morning radio program. Perhaps you're familiar with it. At 8:05, we'll talk to Steve Malloy about that EPA ruling. But let me just be clear. The air you breathe is not a pollutant. You knew that. I knew that. Everyone knew that. And now the federal government has affirmed that. Have you noticed that, like, all the dogmas of left-wing politics go against common sense? And you have to, like, contort yourself into a pretzel to believe it. So if you're an environmental wacko and you have, like, bought into all of the dogmas of environmentalism, you have to convince yourself that breathing out pollutes the planet. That God created you to exhale, and that exhaling in and of itself would damage our planet. That's what you would have to believe.
I mean, honestly, the only answer is to stop breathing, and I wish a few leftists would. I mean, to be honest with you.
No, we don't.
I'm kidding.
I'm
kidding.
Usually.
It's all voluntary.
I do love
they can just do it. They can volunteer to stop breathing. I'm not saying they should.
You also have to contort yourself into a pretzel to believe that boys are not actually boys. It's all just, hey, who knows? Girls, who are you to say what's a girl and what's a boy? It's
That's
like,
right.
What do you mean, who am I to say?
Misassigned at birth.
And now the latest thing that you have to believe is that a clothing company utilizing a attractive young buxomy blonde to sell their clothing is actually the next sign of Nazi fascism in our society. The Sydney Sweeney story continues.
Has this been your favorite segment all week? Because you have to look at pictures of her.
No, because I get really nervous that I'm going to say the wrong thing. Because you know how men are.
About that?
You are fat. You have a husband and 3 boys, and when there's a beautiful woman wearing revealing clothes nearby, they become idiots. Okay, and I'm one of them. And I'm trying to, be appropriate. All right, so let's just let Sydney Sweeney do the talking. Here's it as a reminder, the sound, just the audio, but you can conjure images if you'd like, of one of these offensive ads.
Genes are passed down from parents to offspring, often determining traits like hair color, personality, and even eye color. My genes are blue.
Sydney Sweeney has very genes.
All right, so now for a week, a TikTokers...
I couldn't help but be like, could you enunciate? Can you enunciate? What is that?
No, because that's what's so exciting, and people
sexy
like
talk?
that.
Okay, fine, whatever.
Well, she's got that sort of droopy-eyed, sort of
True.
lazy sort of air about her.
Sure.
I'll leave it at that. TikTokers, usually with blue hair, very short and angry haircuts, and piercings that are quite visible in parts of their face, have been screaming about this and about how this is eugenics. Here's an example, cut 17.
From parents to offspring, often determining traits like hair color, personality, and even eye color. My genes are blue.
Sydney Sweeney has very keen.
They're literally saying the quiet part out loud, but was it ever truly quiet? I mean, really. Make America great again. When was America ever great? Their definition of greatness was when this country was full of white supremacists and that slavery still existed.
There
and now
you
we
go.
have this interesting...
Cut 18. Here's another example. So everyone assumed that this was just a thing on the fringes. All these crazy leftists are the ones that are angry about it. Cut 18.
Should we be surprised that a company whose name is literally American Eagle is making fascist propaganda like this? Probably not. Propaganda. But it's still really shocking. Like, a blonde-haired, blue-eyed white woman is talking about her good genes. Like, that is Nazi propaganda.
All right. So the story has been festering in this sort of netherworld of the left-wing extremists, who, by the way, don't get me wrong, they're the ones saying the quiet part out loud. They speak for the mainstream of the Democrat voting base right now.
Yes.
But the story is now crossed over. I kid you not, Disney-owned ABC News has a morning show called Good Morning America, and they took up the narrative. Take a listen to cut 16.
Time to check the pulse. We begin with the backlash over a new ad campaign featuring actress Sydney Sweeney.
Yeah, the ads are for American Eagle, and the tagline is, Sydney Sweeney has great genes. Now, in one ad, the blonde-haired, blue-eyed actress talks about genes as in DNA being passed down from her parents.
The play on words is being compared to Nazi propaganda with racial undertones.
The pun, good genes, activates troubling historical associations for this country. The American eugenics movement in its prime between like 1900 and 1940 weaponized the idea of good genes just to justify white supremacism.
Despite that backlash, American Eagle stock has been soaring.
Yeah, no, because of the backlash.
I know. Okay, can we also just talk about how American leftists have ignored how eugenics literally is behind Planned Parenthood, and Margaret Sanger pushed eugenics and wanted to rid America of black communities. And they stay silent. They still love Planned Parenthood. They push Planned Parenthood, and that never comes up. They're suddenly concerned about eugenics, which, by the way, this is not eugenics. This is the word genes.
It's not eugenics. It's not.
The word
but
genes.
For ABC News is wringing their hands, and they're doing a deep dive into eugenics at the turn of the century and completely ignore Margaret Sanger.
Right.
The push to legalize and normalize and justify abortion and infanticide, and how it all was connected to eugenics, white supremacy, and that was the birth of Planned Parenthood. That didn't make it into the story, but the problem is Sydney Sweeney and her bodacious tatas. It's 7:43.
This afternoon on the Derek Hunter Show, President Trump returns triumphant from Europe, and the left is crying about it. We'll talk about it at 3 o'clock on WMAL.
Oh, we were very worried about Katy Perry. You know, she it's not easy spending so much time in space as Katy Perry did. As you know, she's an astronaut. And we know that space ain't the place to raise a kid. In fact, it's cold as hell. And when she came back from her time in space, how long was she up there, by the way, in space? Do you remember?
2 minutes.
Was it 2? Was it
maybe 10? Let's give her 10.
Okay. Well, that changes a person, as you know. She sees the world in a very different way and her place in the world. And she came back, and within months, her longtime relationship with Orlando Bloom, which, by the way, produced a child without the benefit of matrimony, which is always a great idea, kids.
Yes, yes.
Her marriage, her relationship fell apart. And there was Orlando Bloom. The deepest cut of all was that she comes back from going to space on Jeff Bezos's rocket ship with Jeff Bezos's plastic injected fiance. She comes back down to the planet
Quite a lead up.
After 7.5 glorious minutes. Her relationship breaks up, and then Orlando Bloom, the ex, ends up going to the Bezos wedding in Venice. Katy Perry is not invited.
There were cameras. What happened up there?
I wonder.
I mean, seriously, was there a cat fight that we didn't see?
If only. So we don't know what happened. You know, if they were smart, they would have done a pillow fight up there. They were in the tight jumpsuits. They could have done the pillow fight, and the feathers would have been zero gravity.
I was about to say, but I mean, that would be so unserious. And then I remembered the jumpsuits. Oh, God,
it would have been amazing.
And the hair.
They should have brought Sydney Sweeney with them. Anyway, let's get back to Earth here, if I may.
They didn't want to be racist.
So we've been very, very, very worried about Katy Perry, that she is now going to be alone and drift into old age and not have anyone with her. But now there's good news. Katy Perry has been spotted at an intimate dinner in Montreal with the former Prime Minister of our 51st state, Justin Trudeau. He's kind of an Orlando Bloom type.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wait, you're not inspired by this story?
I'm happy for Fidel Castro's son. It's nice. It's a nice next step for him.
Oh my God! Oh, the kids are going to look like Fidel Castro. No. Well, we'll see if this actually leads to something. And maybe she'll start running for office. Maybe he'll change citizenship and become a governor of a state, an actual state.
Imagine trading in Legolas for that communist. My God.
That is a bit of a downgrade, isn't it?
It is.
Orlando. I thought Justin Trudeau was married. Is he not?
No, he's divorced. He's been divorced for a long time.
Really?
Yes. I'm surprised. Look, I'm surprised he's moved on to women. I got to tell you.
It's 7:53.